Okay, so today we're going to move into factoring trinomials. We're going to take a look at how the crisscross plays into that process. And primarily, we're going to focus on how do we factor a trinomial when a is 1. We're going to look at a couple of examples where a is bigger than 1, just to kind of get us going with what the big picture looks like. But then we're going to focus in on how do we do it when a is 1. Okay, so let's start with our crisscross method. And we need factors of negative 30, and I have to come up with 13. And that's negative 13. So remember to get your factor generator going. So here's my factoring generator. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a negative 30 here. And let's see what we have. So I need to get 15. Or I need to get 13. So I see that I have 2 and negative 15. And I have 15 and negative 2. And I also have 10 and negative 3. So positive 10 and 3, 15 and 2. So both of those will give me 30. Well, I need a negative 13 and a negative 30. So remember, if this is negative, then I need to have one negative and one positive. So if I make the 10 negative, the 3 positive, that gives me a negative 7. So that will not work. So that means I need to have the 15 and the 2. So who needs to be negative? Do I need a positive 2 and a negative 15, or do I need a negative 2 and a positive 15? Well, I need the negative 15 and the positive 2. So that's going to give me the negative 13. So again, this process is the first step of completing our factoring with the Xbox method. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem here. And we're going to be looking at 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. And I want you to think back to standard form. Standard form of a polynomial is ax squared. Let me rewrite that real quick. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So that's standard form, where a, b, and c are the numbers, okay, in the trinomial. So our a is our first number. So a is 7, b is 29, and c is 4. Okay? Now, to fill in our crisscross, it's really easy. I am going to multiply a times c. So 7 times 4 gives me a positive 28. And my b value, the positive 29, is going to go at the bottom. So then I want to think about factors of 28. So 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7, and that's all I have. So how can I get 29? Well, it's going to have to be 1 and 28. So positive 1 and a positive 28. Okay, so these factors are going to go into these spots right here. Okay, so I'm going to put a positive 1, and it has to be an x. Okay, it has to be an x. And this one is a positive 28x, because I have to get a middle term that has an x in it. And now I'm going to be looking at taking out a GCF. Okay, taking out a GCF. So I have a 1 and a 4. So I know that I can't divide by 2 or 3. So the only number I can take out is a 1, and it's going to be positive. So positive 1. What about 7 and 28? Remember, we're still thinking 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Well, I see a 7. So I'm going to take out a 7. And then I can also take out an x, because they both have x's. Let's go across the top. A 7 and a 1. Yeah, the only thing I'm going to be able to take out is a 1 and an x. They both have x's. And then this last one, I see 28 and a 4. Well, I know I can divide that by 4. So I'm going to take out a 4. Okay, and I have my factored form at that point. So my solution is 7x plus 1, 1x plus 4. So this is really the exact opposite of the binomial multiplication. Okay, we're actually undistributing or unmultiplying these binomials through this Xbox method. Okay, let's try another one. Let's do this 8y squared minus 6y minus 9. Okay, 8y squared minus 6y minus 9. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out our a, b, and our c. And then we're going to multiply, come up with our factors, fill in our crisscross. So what is 8? So a is 8, b is negative 6, and c is negative 9. So if I multiply these two, that gives me a negative 72 and a negative 6. Okay, so we need factors of 72. So 1 and 72, 2 and 36. And I know there's a whole lot more, so I better use my factor calculator. So I've got 72. 3 and 24, 4 and 18, 6 and 12. So 3, 24, 4 and 18, and 6 and 12. And of course, 8 and 9. So how can I come up with a negative 6? Well, it looks to me like the one I need to be looking at is the 6 and the 12. So am I going to need a positive 6 and a negative 12, or do I need a negative 6 and a positive 12? Well, I need a negative 6, so that means I need to have the negative on the 12. So negative 12, positive 6. So those terms are going to go here with our signs. And this happens to be a y, so I'm going to put my y's there. And what goes in this first box is what I started with, my 8y squared. And in my last box goes the minus 9. Okay, so GCF, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Now let's think about 3 and 9. Sorry, 12 and 9. I know I can take out a 3. And notice how they're both negative. So I need to take out a negative 3. Okay, I can divide them both by negatives. And then an 8 and a 6, I can take out a 2. And I can also take out a y. What about 8 and 12? Well, I know I can take out a 2. But I know I can take out a 4 because that's bigger. So I need to take out a 4 and a y. Now remember, these two have to multiply to get 8. So if this is 2, then that needs to be the 4. And here, 6 and negative 9, I can take out a positive 3. Now notice, I'm keeping my signs with my numbers, okay? So my solution is 2y minus 3 and 4y plus 3. Now if I check this, 2 times 4, that's 8y squared. And if I go here, that's a 6y. And here, that's a negative 12y. And there's a minus 9. I see that I have a negative 6y there, and I come up with what I started with. So that's what happens when a is bigger than 1, okay? So we're going to work our way up to that by focusing on what do we do when a is actually 1. Okay, so a is 1. So we're going to take 1 times negative 20. So a is 1, b is negative 1, and c is negative 20. So I have negative 20, negative 1, factors of 20. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. How am I going to get negative 1? Well, it's got to be the 4 and the 5. So do I need positive 4, negative 5, or do I need negative 4, positive 5? Which one of those is going to give me a negative 1? Well, it's got to be the positive 4, negative 5. So positive 4, negative 5. Okay, so going in this box, first term, last term. They're going to go in. Okay, then I'm going to fill in with my factors. So positive 4x, negative 5x. And now I am going to factor out my GCFs. And we're going to continue this process of dividing because when we move back to when a is greater than 1, is if we understand how to pull out those GCFs, it's going to make our life easier. So a 4 and a 20, I know I can take out a 4, and that's positive, and that's fine. A 1x squared and a 5x, I can take out an x. And I can even take out a 1. I can't take out anything else. How about a 1x and a 4? I can take out a 1. X squared and x, I can take out an x. What about a negative 5 and a negative 20? I can take out a negative 5. -5. So my factored form is 1x plus 4, that's a positive 4 that I took out, and 1x minus 5. Okay, so now these are equal to 0. So this is where the two equations come in. 1x plus 4 equals 0. 1x plus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract my 5. I get 1x equals -5, and I'm done. I don't have to divide by, whoops, I lost a negative. Let's back up here. So this one is 1x minus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to add 5. So I have 1x equals a positive 5. 1x plus 4 equals 0. Subtract my 4. 1x is a -4. And if you remember back to what we were doing the other day, that means that I have 1 point over here at 5. I have 1 point over here at -4. And my parabola looks something like that. Okay, let's try another one. This one also we're going to solve, but let's go ahead and factor it out. So again, we have a 1. So a times c. So 1 times -48 is -48. And we have a positive 2. So factors of 48. Well, the one that comes to mind first is 6 and 8. So 48, I know I have 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 6 and 8. Well, I see that I have a 6 and an 8. I know I can come up with a difference of 2 if I make the 8 positive. So positive 8, -2. Whoops, positive 8, -6 will give me a positive 2. So here's my factors. So positive 8b, -6b. I fill in my boxes with 1b squared minus 48, and then I'm going to divide. So I'm going to divide by 8. I'm going to take out a 1b. I'm going to take out a 1b, and -6 and -48, negative, I can take out a -6. So I have my factored form. I have 1b plus 8, and I have 1b minus 6. So since these are equal to 0, 1b plus 8 equals 0. 1b minus 6 equals 0. I'm going to add my 6. 1b is equal to 6. Subtract my 8. B is equal to -8. Remember, these are the same things. I don't have to have the 1 there. And again, thinking about what's going on here. So here's a point at 6. And here's a point at -8. And I know that my parabola is looking something like that. Okay, so you're going to start factoring today. You're not going to do much solving today, but you're going to be working on coming up with this part of the answer today by finding your crisscross, using your box, and practicing our procedure so that when we get to a is bigger than 1, we know what we are looking at. So if you have questions, reach out to us, and we'll continue with this tomorrow.